Hey guys, tonight we are stepping out of the dark, cold streets and into a room filled with liquid light. We are entering the Chandler's workshop. We are going to watch the slow, hypnotic transformation of raw honey and cotton into the candles that lit the medieval world. This is a story about patience, warmth, and the rhythm of the dip. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. Now breathe in the sweet smell of warm beeswax, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Outside, the medieval night is absolute. It is the kind of darkness that swallows sound, that makes the world feel smaller and more fragile. The streets are empty. The frost is thick on the cobblestones. Your breath comes out in small clouds that disappear almost as soon as they form. The wind carries the smell of smoke and horse manure, of straw and cold stone. The city is asleep, or nearly so. A few lights flicker in distant windows, candles, precious and jealously guarded in homes throughout the town. But here, on this narrow street, there is nothing but black. Then you see it. A line of golden light seeping from beneath a heavy wooden door. The door is thick, darker than the night itself, with iron bands running across it. There is no sign, no marker to tell you what lies within. But you know. You know from the way the light spills out, warm and insistent, that something alive is happening on the other side. Your hand finds the iron ring and you pull. The moment the door opens, everything changes. It is as though you have stepped through a threshold between two worlds. Behind you is winter. Ahead of you is summer's ghost. A wall of warmth hits you immediately, pressing against your chest, against your face, enveloping your cold shoulders like a blanket. Your eyes water slightly at the shock of it. Your body, tight and contracted against the cold outside, begins to release its grip almost instantly. You can feel the muscles in your neck, which had been bunched with tension, start to soften. But it is not just the warmth that transforms the moment. It is the smell. There is nothing quite like it. It is not one smell, but many woven together in a way that feels almost alive. There is sweetness, honey, yes, but something deeper and more complex than the simple sweetness of a spoon of honey. It is the smell of beeswax in its pure form, that golden, slightly floral sweetness that seems to come not from your nose, but from somewhere deeper, somewhere in your chest. It fills your lungs and makes you feel, for just a moment, that you have been breathing it your entire life without knowing it. But beneath that sweetness is something else, something savory, something animal. It is the smell of tallow, the rendered fat of cattle and sheep, melted down into a workable substance. It is not unpleasant. It is rich, almost meaty, slightly smoky. It reminds you of butter on warm bread, of cooking fires, of life and sustenance. The two smells do not compete. Instead, they dance around each other, one rising and then falling away, only to let the other rise. Sweetness and savory, light and dark. They create something that is neither one nor the other, but somehow both at once. And then there is the light. Your eyes adjust slowly, and as they do, the workshop reveals itself to you in layers. The room is not large. It is perhaps 20 feet across and 30 feet deep, with a ceiling that slopes upward toward the back. But what the space lacks in size, it makes up for in presence. It is filled with light, golden, flickering, warm light that seems to emanate from multiple sources at once. Lanterns hang from hooks along the walls, their light bouncing off smooth surfaces and creating shadows that dance and shift. But the dominant light comes from the fires beneath the vats. You will see those vats in a moment, large and imposing. But for now, what you notice is the way their fires paint the room in shades of amber and gold. The walls themselves seem to glow. They are whitewashed, or nearly so, and the light from the fires and lanterns bounces off them, filling the room with a luminescence that feels almost underwater in its quality. It is as though you are at the bottom of some golden sea, looking up at the surface far above. The shadows are deep and purple blue, creating contrast that makes the light seem even brighter, even more precious. You step fully inside, and the heavy wooden door closes behind you with a soft thud. The sound is final, complete. You are no longer between worlds. You are fully here now, in the warmth, in the light, in the presence of this space and its ancient work. Your eyes continue to adjust, and slowly the details of the workshop come into focus. The room is organized, but not in any way that suggests sterility or coldness. Everything has its place, but everything also bears the signs of use. There are stains on the floor, pale drippings of wax, yellow and white and cream-colored, that have accumulated over months and years. There are marks on the walls where smoke has risen and darkened the whitewash. The work tables are scarred and worn, their surfaces dimpled and pocked from the work that happens upon them daily. But what dominates the space, what your eye is drawn to again and again, are the vats. They sit like enormous copper drums along the back wall of the workshop, arranged in a row. There are 4 of them, each perhaps 3 feet across and 2.5 feet deep. The copper is hammered smooth in most places, though you can see the marks of the hammer in some areas, small indentations that catch the light and throw it back at different angles. The vats are mounted on a sturdy wooden frame, and beneath each one is a fire pit. These fires are small, controlled, burning with a gentle, steady flame that you can see glowing beneath each vat. There is no roaring or crackling. The fires are tended carefully, maintained at a precise heat that keeps the contents of the vats liquid and warm without ever allowing them to boil. The liquid inside the vats is what captures your attention most fully. It glows. There is no other word for it. The liquid wax catches the light of the fires beneath it and throws that light back upward, creating an effect that is almost hypnotic. It looks like molten gold. It looks like captured sunlight. It looks like liquid amber, like honey that has been heated until it becomes something almost luminous. The surface of the liquid is mirror smooth, so smooth that you can see the reflections of the lanterns in it. See the shadows of the room played out across its surface like a slow, shifting map. The surfaces of the vats are perfectly still. There is no bubbling, no roiling, no turbulence. The wax is heated just enough to keep it liquid, to allow it to flow and coat and harden, but not so much that it agitates or froths. It is the work of a craftsman who has spent years learning the precise balance required, who understands through long practice exactly how much heat is needed, and where that heat should be applied, and when to add more and when to let the fires burn lower. As you stand in the doorway, still holding the cold from outside in your bones, you watch the light play across the surface of the wax in the nearest vat. The light moves in waves, in gentle undulations that seem almost to correspond to the rhythm of your own breathing. In and the light shifts. Out and it settles. In and it moves again. The effect is deeply calming, almost meditative. You could stand here and watch this for hours, you think. You could let the warmth sink deeper into your bones. Let the smell fill your lungs completely. Let the light wash over you until you forgot there was a cold world outside at all. But there is work to be done. The Chandler moves through the space with practiced efficiency. He is not hurrying. His movements are deliberate, measured, careful. But neither are they slow in any way that suggests sluggishness or laziness. It is the careful efficiency of someone who has performed these actions thousands of times, who knows exactly how much movement is necessary, and not a gesture more. He moves from the vat. He has been tending to a workbench on the far side of the room, and his attention shifts completely to the task at hand. The warmth surrounds you. The light embraces you. The smell of honey and fat wraps around you like a gentle hand. You have stepped out of the dark and into a room that feels, for all the world, like the inside of something alive. You are no longer a visitor to this space. You are beginning to belong to it. You are beginning to understand it. And as you watch the Chandler move through his work, you realize that you have been welcomed into something sacred, something that is about transformation, about taking raw materials and burning them down to their essence, about creating light from nothing but patience and warmth and the rhythm of ancient work. You are ready now to see what happens next. The vats are the heart of everything. Standing near them, you can feel the intensity of their presence. They are not merely containers. They are alchemical vessels, places where transformation occurs. The heat rises from beneath them in visible waves, shimmering the air above the liquid surface, making everything beyond them seem to shift and dance and waver. The warmth they radiate is almost overwhelming if you stand too close, pressing against you like another person standing very near, their body heat mingling with yours. Each vat contains something slightly different, and as your eyes adjust and you move closer, you begin to understand the process. The vats are not filled with the same substance throughout. Some are deeper in color than others. Some are lighter, clearer, more purely golden. This is intentional. This is the Chandler system, the result of years of learning and refining. Different vats hold wax at different stages of purity, different temperatures, different purposes. The first vat contains beeswax that is still being cleaned, still being rendered. The second vat holds wax that is nearly pure, that has been skimmed and filtered and allowed to settle. The third vat holds a mixture, a blend of beeswax and tallow that creates a middle ground, a candle that is less expensive than pure beeswax, but burns more cleanly than pure tallow. The fourth vat holds tallow alone, the fat rendered from animal bones and rendered fat, used for the cheapest candles, the ones that burn in the homes of the poor and in the workshop itself. But it is not the destination that matters right now. It is the present moment, the current state of the vats, and what the chandler is doing with them. In the first vat, the wax is warming. The process has been going on for hours, since early morning when the raw beeswax was brought in from the apiary. The beeswax has come to the chandler in rough cakes, yellowish and filled with impurities. There are bits of honeycomb still embedded in it. There is propolis, the dark resinous substance that bees use to seal their hives. There is dust from the apiaries, pollen, dead insects, bits of bee herself. The raw material is beautiful in its own way, filled with the smell of bees and flowers and the deep, ancient work of pollination. But it is not yet ready to become light. First, it must be purified. The heat of the fire beneath the vat has been slowly warming the beeswax for hours. The larger chunks have mostly dissolved into the liquid now, though here and there a piece still clings to the bottom, slowly releasing itself into the molten whole. The surface of the wax in this first vat is not as clear as the others. It is slightly cloudy in places. There are small bits of impurity floating on the surface, tiny dark specks that have risen as the wax has warmed. These are the things that must be removed. The chandler approaches this first vat with a long wooden ladle. The ladle is made of ash wood, pale and smooth, worn from years of use. The handle is long enough that he can stand at a safe distance from the heat and still reach across the surface of the vat. The bowl of the ladle is deep and curved, designed to glide across the surface of the liquid without sinking into it, designed to gather up the impurities while leaving the purified wax behind. He begins to skim. The action is simple but mesmerizing to watch. He moves the ladle slowly across the surface of the wax, tilting it slightly so that the impurities that float there slide into the bowl. He does not hurry. He does not scrape or dig. He simply glides, catching the flotsam that the heat has brought to the surface. Every few strokes, he pulls the ladle back and turns it over a small clay pot that sits nearby. The impurities slide out, a small pile of dark, sticky, twisted bits of matter that have been boiled away from the pure wax. These will be discarded. They have no use. They are waste, but valuable waste, in that their removal brings the remaining substance closer to perfection. The rhythmic motion of the skimming is almost hypnotic. Forward, slow, back, slow, tilt, let the impurities slide, forward again, back again. The chandler works with a kind of meditative focus. His breath is slow. His movements are consistent. There is no wasted motion, but there is also no sense of urgency. This is a process that cannot be rushed. The impurities will continue to rise as long as the wax is heating. This work is not a race to an end point, but rather a continuation of a process that will take many more hours, perhaps days, depending on the quality of the raw material and the season. As he works, more impurities rise. They emerge from the depths of the golden liquid like small dark insects crawling up from underground, disturbed by the heat, seeking escape. Some are solid bits of honeycomb or propolis. Some are waxy residues that have begun to separate from the pure beeswax. Some are things so small and mysterious that it is hard to say exactly what they are, only that they do not belong in the pure liquid, and so they must be removed. The surface of the wax gradually clears. Where it was slightly cloudy before, now you can see deeper into it. The golden color becomes more uniformly bright. The mirror-like quality of the surface becomes more pronounced. The light that bounces off it becomes clearer, less diffused, more intensely golden. With each pass of the ladle, with each removal of impurities, the wax becomes more purely itself. It becomes more capable of holding light. It becomes more ready for the work that will come next. And as you watch this slow purification, you understand something about the nature of this work. It is not violent. It is not forceful. It is, instead, a process of gentle persistence. The chandler does not force the impurities out of the wax. He simply creates conditions where they will rise naturally, and then he removes them. He works with the heat and the natural laws of physics and chemistry, understanding that the substance itself wants to be pure, that given the right conditions, the waste will separate from the valuable material on its own. This is a kind of wisdom. This is understanding how things work at their most fundamental level, and then working in partnership with those natural processes rather than against them. It is the difference between forcing and allowing. It is the difference between violence and craft. The chandler continues to work. The impurities continue to rise. The wax continues to clarify. The golden light inside the vat continues to become more luminous, more clear, more perfect. And you stand nearby, breathing in the warmth and the sweet smell of honey, watching this slow transformation with a sense of deep calm. There is no rush here. There is no urgency. There is only the rhythm of the work, the persistence of the process, and the gradual perfection of the material. This is what makes the difference between the candles that the wealthy burn in their homes, candles that burn bright and clean and fill the air with sweetness, and the candles that the poor burn if they can afford any light at all. This is the patient work that goes into making something that holds light well, that burns cleanly, that doesn't smell of animal fat and smoke. This is the hours of skimming, the careful tending of heat, the removal of impurities one small handful at a time. The work is slow. The work is never finished. Even now, as the wax becomes clearer and clearer, new impurities continue to rise from the depths. Tomorrow, the chandler will return to this vat and continue skimming. The day after tomorrow, he will return again. Days from now, the beeswax will finally be pure enough to move to the next vat, or to be combined with other materials, or to be set aside to cool and be stored for later use. But for now, in this moment, the work continues. The chandler's hand moves slowly. The ladle glides. The impurities rise. The light deepens. And the slow alchemy of the chandler's workshop continues on, patient and persistent and absolutely necessary. The work with the vats is not the only work that must be done. In fact, before the wax is ready to be used, before any candle can be formed, there is another essential material that must be prepared: the wicks. Without the wicks, the wax is merely a beautiful, glowing substance with no purpose. The wick is what allows the wax to burn. The wick is what transforms the solidified wax into light and heat. And the creation of the wicks requires its own kind of work, its own kind of attention and care. On the far side of the workshop, away from the heat and intensity of the vats, there is a workbench. It is a sturdy table made of dark wood that has been worn smooth by years of use. The surface of the table is not smooth anymore, though. It is dimpled and worn, marked with small indentations where spools have been placed, where fibers have been twisted and pulled, where the work of wick making has left its mark. On this table, arranged with precise care, are the materials of the chandler's craft. There are spools, many spools. They are made of ash wood or birch, turned smooth on a lathe, and they are wound tightly with thread. Cotton thread and linen thread mostly. Some are thicker than others, some are finer. The colors vary. Natural linen is pale, almost white, while cotton can be slightly more golden, slightly more off-white. But they are all thread, all the raw material from which wicks will be made. The spools are arranged in rows, and as you stand near the workbench, you become aware of their variety. Each spool represents a different source, a different supplier, a different batch of fiber. Some of the thread is newer, still crisp and clearly marked with the lines where it has been wound on the spool. Some of the thread is older, already worn slightly, the fibers beginning to relax and soften from the tension of being wound so tightly. The chandler works with all of it, understanding the qualities of each type, knowing which threads work best for which purposes. And now it is time to begin the work with these threads. Your guide, the chandler, approaches the workbench, and his entire manner changes. Where he was moving slowly and deliberately at the vats, with that meditative quality of someone performing a task that cannot be rushed, now he becomes more animated, not hurried. His efficiency is still evident in every movement, but more present, more active. He chooses a spool. His hand reaches out and selects one almost without thinking, but you know the choice is not random. He has selected this spool because of some quality in the thread, some understanding of what he needs right now, what weight and texture and thickness will serve the work that is to come. He holds the spool in one hand and uses the fingers of his other hand to feel the thread. This is important. The thread must be understood through touch as much as through sight. His fingers move across the thread, feeling its texture, its weight, its resistance. The thread is rough beneath his fingertips. It is not smooth like silk would be. There is a texture to it, a slight hairiness, a quality that comes from the very nature of cotton and linen, which are plant fibers, twisted and spun together, but never completely losing the slight fuzz of their origins. The touch is calming. Your own fingers, by observation, begin to remember what it feels like to touch something real and textured and honest. These threads have not been processed into something smooth and slick. They remain true to their nature. They are the fibers of plants, transformed but not hidden. And that roughness, that honesty of texture, is essential to their purpose. The wax will cling to this roughness. The wax will bind to this texture. A smooth thread would allow the wax to slide off. A smooth thread would not work as a wick. It is the roughness, the plant nature of the fiber, that allows the wick to hold the wax, to become part of the candle, to draw the molten wax up into itself where it can burn and provide light. The chandler's fingers move along the thread, feeling it, understanding it, becoming familiar with it. And as he does, you feel yourself becoming more present in your own body, more aware of the sensation of touch, more grounded in the physical reality of the work. This is not intellectual work. This is not work done from a distance. This is work done hand to hand, fiber to fiber, human to material. This is the most ancient kind of craft, the kind that requires that the maker understand the material not just through knowledge, but through direct physical contact. The chandler sets the spool down on the workbench. He has chosen what he needs, but the thread on the spool is not yet ready to be made into wicks. It must first be transformed. The thread must be made stronger. It must be twisted. The work of making wicks is, at its heart, a work of twisting. This is ancient work. This is the same work that humans have done for thousands of years, in every culture, in every climate where plants grow and can be spun into fiber. The principle is simple, but the execution requires skill and understanding. Two threads, twisted together, become stronger than either thread alone. The twist locks the fibers together. It creates friction that holds the fibers in place. It transforms two separate pieces of material into a single unified whole that is greater than the sum of its parts. The chandler begins by selecting not one but several threads. He might choose two, or he might choose three, or sometimes four, depending on the thickness and strength of the individual threads and the thickness and strength of the wick that he needs to create. He holds the threads lightly in his fingers, letting them rest against his palm, feeling their weight, understanding how they will work together. Then, with practiced precision, he begins to twist. His hands move in a motion that appears simple, but contains within it years of learning. One hand holds the bundle of threads. The other hand moves, rotating, creating a twist in the threads that runs from his hand outward, traveling down the length of the threads like a spiral. As the twist is created, the individual threads become locked together. The friction that the twist creates binds them. The fibers, no longer parallel but now intertwined, support each other. The motion is rhythmic. It is meditative. The hand moves, creating the twist. Then the chandler moves his hands further down the thread, gathering more length into his working area, and twists again. The twist that he created before remains locked in place. The new length of thread is incorporated into the existing twist. The wick grows longer. There is a music to this work, you realize. There is a rhythm that is almost audible, even though it is silent. The movement of his hands, the gathering of thread, the creation of twist, the advancement along the length, it is like a dance, like a rhythm that has been internalized so completely that it needs no external beat to maintain it. The chandler is not counting. He is not thinking about each step. The work has become part of his body, part of his being, something that he does as naturally as breathing. And there is something hypnotic about watching this work. The way the threads twist, the way they lock together, the way the individual fibers, which could be easily pulled apart when separate, become strong and unified when twisted together. It is a visual metaphor for something deeper, you understand. The twist is not merely a physical technique. It is a principle. Separate elements, twisted together, become stronger. Coordination and unity create strength. The whole is greater than the parts. The chandler's fingers move, twist, gather, move, twist, gather. The wick grows. It becomes longer and longer, accumulating length as he works. And as the wick grows, you become aware of something else. The wick that is being created is not uniform. At some points it is thicker, where the chandler has chosen to twist more threads together. At other points it is thinner, where perhaps one of the threads has become too worn or damaged and he has adjusted. The wick reflects the work that has gone into creating it. It is not a mass-produced item created by machine with absolute uniformity. It is handmade. It bears within it the decisions of the craftsman, the choices made in real time, the adjustment to the materials as they present themselves. This is important, you understand. The uniformity of the twist, the consistency of the pressure, the careful control of how tightly the threads are wound together, all of this matters. A wick that is twisted too loosely will not hold together well. It will unravel. It will not support the wax effectively. A wick that is twisted too tightly will be stiff and difficult to work with. It will not absorb the melted wax as efficiently. It will burn too quickly or too slowly. The balance is delicate. The balance requires understanding. The balance is achieved through years of practice, through thousands of wicks made, through the accumulated knowledge of a craftsman who has spent his life learning the subtle arts of his trade. And even now, even after all these years, even as his hands move in this practiced rhythm, the chandler is paying attention. His eyes are on the threads. His fingers are feeling the resistance, the quality, the thickness. He is making small adjustments. He is responding to what the material is telling him. He is not mechanically repeating a process. He is engaged in a dialogue with the material, a conversation conducted through touch and sight and years of accumulated knowledge. The wick continues to grow. It continues to accumulate length, and the rhythm of the work continues, steady and hypnotic, patient and purposeful. This is the second stage of the creation. The raw material, the plant fiber in the form of thread, is being transformed into something closer to its final purpose. It is no longer merely thread. It is becoming a wick. It is being prepared to hold light. The finished wick lies on the workbench, coiled loosely. It is several feet long, perhaps 8 or 10 feet. It is a pale color, off-white or cream, with a subtle golden tint in places where the natural color of the linen or cotton shows through. The twist runs along its entire length, consistent but not mechanical. It catches the light, and you can see the spiral pattern clearly, the way the fibers are locked together, the way each revolution of the twist overlaps with the next. The chandler picks up this finished wick carefully. It is delicate in its way. It will not break easily. The twist is strong enough to hold firmly, but it has not yet been hardened or protected. It is still vulnerable. It is still in a transitional state between raw material and finished product. Now comes the next stage. The finished wicks must be arranged, must be prepared for the dipping that is to come. This is where the wooden frame enters the work. The frame is a beautiful object in its way. It is made of ash wood or birch, pale and smooth, shaped something like a rake or a comb. The handle is thick and sturdy, designed to be held in one hand and gripped firmly. The head of the frame is wider, perhaps 1.5 feet across, and from it hang a series of thin wooden dowels running parallel to each other, spaced perhaps 3 or 4 inches apart. The purpose of these dowels is to hold the wicks. Each dowel serves as an anchor point for one wick. The wicks will be tied to the dowels, stretched straight and taut, hanging down from the frame like strings on a lyre or harp. When the frame is lowered into the vat of hot wax, all the wicks will be submerged together. When the frame is lifted, all the wicks will emerge together, each one coated with a thin layer of wax. This is efficiency, yes, but it is also craft. The arrangement of the wicks matters. The spacing matters. The way they are tied matters. Everything about the preparation matters. The chandler approaches a wooden workbench where the frame is resting. The frame is supported horizontally, held in place by wooden stands so that it is at a convenient height for work. The dowels hang downward, waiting to receive their wicks. There are perhaps 24 dowels, you count, maybe more. 24 chances to attach a wick, 24 strings that will hang down, waiting for the wax. The chandler takes the wick he has finished and approaches the first dowel. The wick is looped over the dowel, creating a doubled length that hangs down. This is important, you understand. The wick is not tied at a single point. Instead, it is looped, creating 2 strands that hang parallel to each other. The doubled wick will emerge from the vat as 2 identical pieces, 2 wicks created from one longer wick. This is efficiency, yes, but it is also elegant. Nothing is wasted. The material is used fully. The chandler ties the wick in place using a simple knot, not elaborate, but secure. The knot holds the looped wick firmly to the dowel. The knot is tight enough that the wick cannot slip, but not so tight that the chandler's hands struggle or the knot becomes too difficult to untie later when the work is complete. With the first wick secured, he moves to the second dowel and then the third. The work is repetitive now, but not in a way that is tedious. Each wick is a new action, a new opportunity for attention. The chandler is present for each one. His hands move with confidence. The knot is tied and secured. The wick hangs straight, perfectly vertical, waiting for what will come next. As more and more wicks are attached, the frame begins to transform. It becomes populated with hanging strings, with dozens of pale wicks stretching downward, creating a visual field of parallel lines that are almost meditative to look at. All the wicks hang straight. None of them twist or curl or tangle with each other. They are perfectly parallel, perfectly spaced, perfectly ready. The chandler works steadily, and as he does, you become aware of the time that this is taking. There are many wicks to attach. The work is not difficult, but it is methodical. It requires attention. It requires that each knot be tied carefully, that each wick be positioned correctly. This is the kind of work that could be done hastily, but would suffer for it. The chandler does not hurry. He attaches each wick with the same care that he tied the first one. And slowly, gradually, the empty frame becomes full. The empty frame becomes a tool, becomes a carrier of wicks, becomes something prepared and purposeful. The dozens of pale strings hang down like a curtain, like something between a net and a harp. They are ready. They are waiting. They are perfectly positioned for what will come next. The chandler steps back to examine his work. He looks at the frame from different angles. He checks that the wicks are properly positioned, that they are straight, that none of them have twisted or tangled. His inspection is thorough, but not obsessive. He knows the quality of his work. He knows that the frame is ready. And as you look at the frame, now populated with wicks, now transformed from a tool into something purposeful and prepared, you understand that you have arrived at a threshold. The raw materials have been processed. The vats of wax are warming, becoming purified, becoming ready. The wicks have been created, twisted, selected, arranged. Everything is prepared. Everything is ready. The stage has been set. And what comes next is the transformation that ties everything together, the union of materials that creates the candle, the moment when the wax and the wick meet and become something new. The chandler looks at the frame one final time. He nods to himself, satisfied. And then he moves to take up the frame, to carry it to the vats, to begin the work that transforms all of these preparations into finished candles. The moment has arrived. It is time for the first dip. The chandler approaches the frame where all the wicks hang ready. His hands grasp the thick wooden handle with confidence. This is heavy work, in a way, though not because the frame itself is particularly heavy. Rather, it is heavy because of its significance. This is the moment where all the preparation becomes real. This is where the skill that has been demonstrated up until now is about to be demonstrated again, but with higher stakes. This is where the materials are about to combine, where the transformation is about to begin. He lifts the frame. It comes up smoothly. The wicks hang straight as he raises it, and for a moment, before he begins to move across the workshop, the frame is held aloft. You can see all the wicks together, all the pale threads, all the twisted fibers, all the knots holding them to the dowels. The frame is a promise, held in the hands of the chandler, a promise that light will come, a promise that these materials will be transformed. He turns and begins to walk toward the vats. His pace is unhurried but purposeful. There is no stumbling. There is no hesitation. His feet know the way. His body knows how to carry this load. He has done this countless times before, and he will do it countless times again. The nearest vat is the one filled with the purified beeswax, the golden liquid that has been warming and being skimmed throughout the day. This is the vat that will receive the wicks for their first coating. The vat gleams in the light, its surface mirror smooth, its golden color almost glowing. He arrives at the vat's edge. He pauses for a moment, taking in the exact position, understanding through long practice exactly where to place the frame, exactly how to angle it, exactly how to lower it so that the wicks will be submerged fully and evenly. And then he begins to lower. The frame descends. The wicks descend with it. They move from the warm but dry air of the workshop toward the surface of the liquid wax. The temperature increases as they approach. You can see the air beginning to shimmer above the wax, can feel the heat becoming more intense. And then contact. The tips of the wicks touch the surface of the wax. The contact is not violent or dramatic. It is a simple meeting, an interface between two materials. But in that meeting, something happens. The wax is so hot that it causes the moisture in the wick, the tiny amount of moisture that exists in all plant fibers, even when they seem dry, to flash into vapor. The result is a sound, a soft fizzing, a gentle sizzle. It sounds almost like a whisper, a very quiet voice speaking from the depths of the vat. The chandler continues to lower the frame. The fizzing becomes slightly louder as more and more of the wicks contact the hot wax. But it is not violent fizzing. It is not the angry sound of water dropped into hot oil. It is gentle, almost musical. It is the sound of transformation beginning, the sound of the wicks accepting the heat, the sound of the vat receiving the work. The wicks sink into the wax. The dowels sink toward the surface of the vat. The chandler lowers the frame until the dowels themselves are nearly touching the liquid, until all of the wicks are fully submerged, until the entire frame is positioned as deeply in the wax as it can be without the wooden dowels actually touching the hot liquid. For a moment, the frame rests there, suspended. The wicks are fully immersed. The golden wax surrounds them, touches them, begins its work of coating them. The heat of the wax is soaking into the fibers. The liquid is finding the tiny spaces between the twisted threads, filling them, beginning the process of creating a unified object out of separate elements. The wick and the wax are meeting. They are beginning their union. The moment lasts for perhaps 5 or 10 seconds. It is long enough for the wax to truly penetrate the wick, long enough for the coating to begin to form, but not so long that the wax becomes overheated or that the fibers become damaged by the intense heat. Then, with a smooth motion, the chandler begins to lift. The frame rises from the surface of the wax. The wicks rise with it, and as they rise, the first transformation becomes visible. What emerges from the vat is no longer the pale, cream-colored thread that descended into it. What emerges is something new. The wicks are now coated in wax. The coating is thin, extraordinarily thin, but it is visible. The wicks are now a golden color, catching the light, glistening. The wax has clung to the rough fibers of the thread. The wax has filled the small spaces between the fibers. The wax has bound itself to the wick. The transformation is almost miraculous to watch. The wicks that were merely thread a moment before are now more than thread. They are part wax. They are becoming candles. The chandler lifts the frame fully from the vat. The wicks drip slightly as they emerge, tiny droplets of wax falling back into the vat, returning to the source. The dripping lasts for only a moment. As the wicks clear the surface of the vat and move into the slightly cooler air of the workshop, the wax on them begins to cool, to firm slightly, to stabilize. He carries the frame back toward the workbench. The wicks are still warm. The wax is still slightly liquid, still flowing slightly, still mobile. But with each moment that passes, with each step that the chandler takes, the wax is cooling. It is firming. It is becoming more solid. When he reaches the workbench, he rests the frame on the wooden stands that support it. The wicks hang straight again, now coated with their first layer of wax. The golden color glows in the light of the workshop. The transformation is underway. What was thread is becoming candle. What was separate elements is becoming unified. The chandler steps back to examine the work. He looks at the wicks. He checks that the coating is even, that no wick is thicker or thinner than the others, that the wax has adhered properly across the entire length. His inspection is thorough. His practiced eye sees what is good and what might need adjustment. And you realize, watching this final moment, that you have witnessed something fundamental. You have seen the beginning of the process that has lit the world. You have seen the moment where materials are transformed. You have seen the union of wax and wick, the meeting of two separate things that become unified. You have seen the rhythm that will continue again and again, dip after dip, layer after layer, until these thin, delicate strings emerge as the thick, fully formed candles that will burn in the homes of the medieval world. The work continues now into the realms of repetition. The frame will return to the vat. The wicks will be dipped again. Another thin layer of wax will be added, and again, and again. Dozens of times, perhaps 100 times, the wicks will be dipped and lifted, building up the candle layer by layer, until the delicate strings have become the full, robust candles that can hold a flame, that can burn steadily, that can provide light to the darkness. But for now, in this moment, you rest with the completion of the first dip. You rest in the knowledge that the transformation has begun. You rest in the warmth of the workshop, in the smell of honey and fat, in the golden glow of the wax and the light. You rest in the knowledge that you have witnessed something essential, something ancient, something that connects you to thousands of years of human craft and human need for light. The chandler moves toward the vat once more. The work is not finished, but the rhythm has been established. The pattern has been begun. The transformation is underway. The chandler lifts the frame from the vat for the second time. The wicks rise, and immediately you notice the difference from the first dip. The coating is thicker now, not much thicker. The addition is measured in fractions of an inch, but it is visible. The wicks are more distinctly golden now. They catch the light more fully. They are becoming less thread and more substance. He carries the frame back to rest, and you understand that this is the beginning of the rhythm. This is the work that will continue over and over in a pattern that is as old as candle making itself. Dip, lift, rest. Dip, lift, rest. It is a pendulum. It is a heartbeat. It is the pulse that will transform these thin strings into the thick candles that will eventually grace the tables and altars of the medieval world. The waiting begins again. The wax on the wicks cools as the frame rests on the workbench. The cooling is visible in the way the surface of the wax changes. Where it was glossy and liquid just moments ago, it is now becoming more matte, more solid. The golden glow becomes less of a shine and more of a steady luminescence. The wax is firming. The wax is hardening. The wax is becoming part of the wick. And as you watch this waiting period, as you observe the cooling of the wax, you begin to understand something essential about the nature of this work. The work is not frantic. The work is not hurried. The work is measured, rhythmic, almost meditative in its repetition. There is a pace to it that cannot be rushed. The wax must cool enough to harden, but not so much that it becomes brittle. The timing must be precise. And that timing has been learned over years, understood intuitively by the body of the chandler, encoded into his movements in a way that requires no conscious thought. The period of cooling lasts for perhaps 2 or 3 minutes. It is long enough for the wax to set, for the layer to become firm enough that the next layer will not simply slide off the previous one. It is long enough for the candle to develop its structure, layer by layer. But it is not so long that the work becomes inefficient. That time is wasted waiting when work could be done. Then, with the same smooth motion as before, the chandler approaches the vat again. The frame is lifted. The wicks are carried toward the heat, and the cycle begins once more. This time, as the wicks descend into the wax, you are more aware of the details. You hear the fizzing more clearly, the soft sizzle as the wicks contact the hot liquid. You see the ripples that form on the surface of the wax where the wicks break the surface tension. You feel the heat radiating outward, intensifying, pressing against you as the chandler lowers the frame fully into the vat. The moment of immersion lasts again for perhaps 5 or 10 seconds, and then the lifting begins. The frame rises. The wicks emerge, now coated with their second layer. The second layer is slightly thicker than the first. You can see it clearly now. The wicks have substance. They are no longer just thread dipped in wax. They are becoming candles. The dripping begins. The wax that coats the wicks is still warm enough to be slightly liquid, and so it drips. Small droplets of wax fall from the wicks back into the vat, returning to the source, returning to be used again. The dripping is the sound of the work. It is a gentle patter, a soft percussion that echoes slightly in the workshop. Drip, drip, drip. One droplet after another, falling through the air, striking the surface of the wax below, disappearing back into the golden sea. The sound is hypnotic. It is a metronome. It is the rhythm of the work made audible. And as you listen to it, as you watch the frame held at the vat's edge, waiting for the dripping to stop, you understand that this moment, this between moment, this pause between dips, is as important as the dipping itself. This is where the wax sets. This is where the candle solidifies. This is where the previous layer is locked in place, ready to receive the next. Dripping slows. The droplets become less frequent. There is a rhythm to them, a pattern. At first, the droplets fall in rapid succession, one after another, almost like a light rain. but gradually the frequency decreases. The droplets become more spaced out. Finally, there is a single drop that hangs from one of the wicks, wobbles, and then falls. And then there is silence. The dripping has stopped. The wicks have stopped releasing their excess wax. The coating has set enough that the next dip can occur. The chandler carries the frame back to rest. He places it on the wooden stands with the same care he has shown throughout, and the waiting begins again. This cycle now repeats, and repeats, and repeats again. Dip, lift, drip, wait. Dip, lift, drip, wait. The rhythm becomes hypnotic as you watch it continue. The chandler is no longer a person performing a series of discrete actions. He has become part of the rhythm. His body moves in synchronization with the cycle. His muscles have learned the precise timing. His mind is not engaged in consciously thinking about when to lift or when to lower. Instead, the work has become automatic in the deepest sense. It has become embodied. It has become meditation. The third dip occurs, the fourth, the fifth. With each dip, the candles grow visibly thicker. What was almost invisible after the first dip is now clearly present after the fifth. The wicks are no longer thin threads. They are becoming objects with substance, with weight, with the beginning of the proportion and shape that a candle should have. The sound of the dripping continues. The sound of the wax returning to the vat. The sound of the work. And it is this sound, this gentle, persistent patter of liquid wax falling into liquid wax, that seems to define the workshop. It is the soundtrack of transformation. It is the audio signature of the ancient craft. The heat in the workshop is increasing. As the chandler moves back and forth, lifting the frame from the cooling air and carrying it to the heating vat, the warmth builds. The vat is warm. The air around the vat is warm. The wicks that are being dipped are giving off heat. The very process of transformation is generating warmth. The workshop is becoming a warm space, a heated chamber where the outside cold cannot touch. And the smell. The smell continues to fill the space. It is no longer just sweet and savory in equal measure. The smell is becoming dominant, overwhelming, intoxicating. The honey smell of the beeswax is intensifying as more and more of it is warmed, as more and more of its aromatic compounds are released into the air. The air is becoming thick with the smell. It is coating your lungs. It is filling your sinuses. It is making your eyelids heavy. It is the smell of work, of transformation, of something essential happening in this warm and glowing space. The sixth dip occurs. The seventh. The eighth. The candles are definitely thickening now. Where you could easily pinch the coating between your thumb and finger after the third dip, you would need more force now. The layers are accumulating. The candles are building up, ring after ring, layer after layer, like the rings of a tree, like the sediment of ancient lakes, like the slow accumulation of time made visible. The rhythm continues. The chandler seems to move in a trance now, lifted above the ordinary world by the repetition and the rhythm. His face is calm. His breathing is steady. His movements are efficient. He is no longer a person working. He has become the work itself. The boundary between the doer and the deed has dissolved. Dip. The frame descends into the golden heat. The wicks vanish beneath the surface of the wax. The fizzing sound, now familiar, now almost comforting, as the moisture in the fibers converts to vapor. The frame rests in the vat, the wicks fully submerged, the wax flowing around them, penetrating them, coating them. Lift, the frame rises. The wicks emerge, dripping. The newest layer of wax clings to them, clings to the previous layers, becomes part of the growing structure. Drip, the sound of the falling wax, the gentle percussion that fills the workshop. The wax returning to its source, returning to be used again, the cycle continuing. Wait, the frame is carried back to rest. The wicks are held in the air, held in the cooler reaches of the workshop, held in the gentle warmth that surrounds everything. The wax cools. The wax sets. The newest layer becomes part of the older layers, becomes locked in place, becomes permanent. The ninth dip occurs. The 10th, the 12th, you lose count. The numbers cease to matter. What matters is the rhythm. What matters is the flow of the work. What matters is the transformation that is happening before your eyes, slow and steady and absolutely certain. The candles are definitely substantial now. The thin threads that descended into the vat for the first time are gone, replaced by objects that have weight, that have proportion, that are beginning to resemble the candles that you have seen burning in homes and churches. The golden coating is thick enough now that you can no longer see the fibers of the wick beneath it. The wax has become opaque. The candles are becoming opaque. They are becoming what they are meant to be. And still the rhythm continues. Dip, lift, drip, wait. Dip, lift, drip, wait. The pendulum swings back and forth. The work continues. The transformation continues. And you watching feel yourself slipping deeper into the rhythm, deeper into the warmth, deeper into the intoxicating smell of the honey wax. Your eyelids are heavy. Your body is relaxed. Your breathing has slowed to match the rhythm of the work. You are no longer merely observing. You are becoming part of the workshop. You are becoming part of the rhythm. You are becoming part of the ancient work of making light. The 15th dip, the 20th, the 25th. The candles are thick now, visibly thick. They are no longer growing at a rate that is easily visible with each dip. The layers are accumulating so gradually that it takes several dips before you notice a significant increase in thickness. This is the deep work, the work of building up the candle gradually until it reaches the proper size. And still the Chandler continues. His pace has not changed. His rhythm has not wavered. He is a machine of flesh and bone and muscle memory, performing the same action over and over with absolute precision. There is no fatigue in his movements. There is no hesitation. There is only the work and the rhythm and the slow transformation of the materials before him. The warmth in the workshop is intense now. The heat from the vat, the heat from the work, the heat of the transformation happening before your eyes. It all combines to create an environment that is almost tropical in its humidity and warmth. The air is thick. The air is heavy. The air is filled with the scent of beeswax to such a degree that you can almost taste it. Your mouth feels coated with it. Your throat feels lined with the sweet and slightly floral flavor of the honey that is at the heart of the wax. The 30th dip, the 40th. The time is passing, but it is passing in a way that is not marked by clock or bell. The time is marked instead by the accumulation of layers, by the growing thickness of the candles, by the progress of the work itself. The work is a measure of time. The work is a measure of progress. The work is the only clock that matters in this place. And with each dip, you feel yourself sinking deeper into the hypnotic state that the work induces. Your eyes are growing heavier. Your body is becoming more relaxed. The warmth is soaking into you, into your bones, into your very being. You are no longer cold from the night outside. You are warm. You are safe. You are cradled in the heat and the light and the rhythm of the work. The candles are approaching their final thickness now. The Chandler is slowing his pace slightly, taking a moment between dips to assess the progress, to examine the candles more closely, to determine when the work will be complete. He looks at the wicks hanging from the frame. He looks at the thickness of the accumulated wax. He is making a judgment, assessing whether the candles are ready to move to the next phase of their creation. And finally, after dozens of dips, after what seems like hours but may be less, the Chandler approaches the vat one final time. But this time, instead of returning the frame to rest, he carries it toward the back of the workshop. The final dip is complete. The dipping cycle is finished. The candles are ready. And the work now enters its next phase, a phase of cooling and setting and preparation for the finishing work that is to come. The rhythm that has hypnotized you, that has become the heartbeat of the workshop, is now pausing. But you know it will resume again tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day after that. The rhythm is eternal. The rhythm is the work itself. The rhythm is what makes light possible in the darkness. As the frame emerges from the final dip, you become aware of the candles in a way that you have not been able to before. They are no longer in motion. They are no longer being carried back and forth, back and forth. They are still. They are held in the air by the wooden dowels, hanging straight and true, waiting for what comes next. And they are transformed. What hangs from the frame now bears almost no resemblance to the pale threads that began the dipping cycle. What hangs there now are candles, proper candles, objects with weight and substance and the correct proportion. The wicks are still visible at the core. You can see them if you look closely, thin dark threads running up the center of each cream-colored cylinder. But the wicks are no longer the essential element. They are merely the skeleton, the structure upon which the candle has been built. The candles themselves are beautiful. They are smooth and even in color, a pale cream that catches the light and glows gently. The accumulated layers have created a surface that is almost satin-like in its finish, smooth but not slick, with a subtle sheen that speaks to the nature of the material. The candles are uniform in thickness, each one nearly identical to the ones beside it, evidence of the precision and consistency of the chandler's work. And you begin to notice something about the growth that has occurred. Each candle is slightly thicker than it was when you last looked closely. Not dramatically thicker. The change is subtle, gradual, almost imperceptible with each individual dip. But over the course of dozens of dips, the accumulation becomes significant. The candles have grown from thin strings to solid cylinders, each accumulation of wax adding its own microscopic layer to the whole, building up in exactly the same way that a tree builds its annual rings. Growth added year after year, season after season, until decades of growth have been recorded in the wood. The satisfaction of seeing this transformation is profound. You can imagine what it must be like to perform this work day after day, to watch the thin strings become solid candles, to know that by your hands, by your skill, by your understanding of the materials and the heat and the rhythm, you have created something that will provide light in the darkness, that will burn in homes and churches and workshops, that will allow people to extend their day beyond the setting of the sun. That will provide comfort and safety, and the ability to work and read and pray when the natural light has abandoned the world. The chandler looks at the candles hanging from the frame, and you can see a subtle expression of satisfaction cross his face. He has created something good. He has performed his craft well. The candles are uniform, smooth, proper in their proportion. They are ready for the next stage. But before that next stage can occur, the candles must cool completely. The wax must become fully hardened. The layers must fuse together, become one unified object instead of separate layers that have merely been stuck together. And for that to occur, the candles must be hung in a place where they can cool slowly, where the air can circulate around them, where they can be left undisturbed to harden. The chandler carries the frame toward the back of the workshop, toward the ceiling beams that run horizontally across the highest point of the space. These beams are thick, aged wood that has been darkened by years of smoke and heat. They are positioned perhaps 8 feet above the floor, high enough that the candles will not be in the way of people working in the workshop, high enough that they will be out of direct reach. He lifts the frame, raising it higher than his head, and with practiced motion, he sets it to rest on hooks that have been mounted on the wooden beams. The frame settles into place, held securely, held horizontally, with all the candles hanging straight down into the empty space below. And suddenly, the space above the workbenches is transformed. Where there was nothing before, there is now a forest of hanging candles. Dozens of them hang in rows, pale and smooth, creating a kind of chandelier made not of brass or iron, but of the candles themselves, of the work of hours, of the accumulated patience and skill of the craftsman. The air is cooler up here, away from the heat of the vats below. The cooling that begins here will be slower, more gradual, more complete than the cooling that occurs on the benches below. The candles will have time to fully harden, time for the wax to become as rigid as it will become, time for all the internal tensions in the material to resolve, time for the candle to become truly unified. And as you look up at this forest of hanging candles, you understand something about the work that you have witnessed. The work is not merely about the individual actions, the individual dips, the individual moments of lifting and dripping and waiting. The work is about accumulation. It is about the building up of small additions until they become something substantial. It is about the marriage of patience and skill, about the understanding that important things cannot be rushed, that transformation takes time, that the best work is the work that proceeds at a pace determined by the nature of the materials and the physics of the process, not by any external demand or desire to hurry. The candles hang in the stillness of the upper workshop. They cool slowly. They harden. They become ready for whatever comes next. And you, watching them hang there, suspended in the soft light of the workshop, feel your own breath slow, feel your own body relax further into the warmth and the calm. The candles hang in the upper reaches of the workshop, cooling, hardening, becoming ready. But the air in the workshop itself has changed. It is no longer the intense, almost suffocating heat that existed when the dipping was at its height. The fires beneath the vats are still burning, still warming the wax, still necessary to keep the material workable for the next day's production. But the active work, the repetitive motion, the constant carry of the frame back and forth, that has stopped. And with it, the heat has begun to moderate slightly. But the warmth remains. The warmth is still intense, still pervasive, still dominant. The workshop is still hot compared to the cold night outside, still warm compared to the rest of the world. And the smell, the intoxicating, overwhelming smell of warm beeswax, has settled into the space like a living thing. It is no longer rising in waves, no longer intensifying with each dip. But it is present, omnipresent, coating everything, filling the air, filling your lungs, making every breath a breath of honey. Your eyelids are heavy. You can feel the weight of them. The heat and the smell have combined to create a profound sense of relaxation in your body. Your shoulders, which were held up and tight with the tension of watching the work, have released completely. Your neck is loose. Your muscles are soft. Your breathing is slow and deep, the honey-scented air flowing in and out of your lungs with an easiness that feels almost like floating. The humidity in the air is considerable. The heat from the vats is causing moisture to rise from the wax, and this moisture is hanging in the air, creating an atmosphere that is almost tropical. Your skin feels slightly damp. Your hair clings to your neck. The air itself feels heavy, feels almost tangible, as though it has weight and substance. It is an atmosphere that invites surrender, that invites sleep, that invites a letting go of the tensions and cares of the outside world. The Chandler moves through this atmosphere with a kind of ease that comes from long familiarity. He is no longer actively dipping. Instead, he is tending to the vats, adjusting the fires slightly, checking on the wax, ensuring that everything is prepared for tomorrow's work. His movements are slow and deliberate. His actions are economical. He is not wasting energy. He is conserving, settling, beginning the process of slowing the work down for the approaching evening. And as you watch him move through the warm, humid workshop, you feel yourself settling as well. You feel yourself beginning to wind down. The day's work has been witnessed. The transformation has occurred. The candles are hanging, cooling, becoming ready. And now there is a period of rest, a period of letting the work settle, a period of preparing for sleep. The atmosphere of the workshop has become almost narcotic. The heat and the humidity and the smell are working together to lower your defenses, to quiet your mind, to bring you deeper into a state of relaxation that is almost like hypnosis. It would be easy, so easy, to simply close your eyes and surrender to this warmth, to this smell, to this profound sense of safety and comfort. Your eyelids grow heavier still. You have to focus to keep them open. The light in the workshop is beginning to take on a dreamlike quality. the golden glow seeming to shift and waver, seeming almost to pulse in time with your slowing heartbeat. The shadows in the corners of the workshop seem deeper, more mysterious. The hanging candles above seem to float in the golden light, suspended between earth and sky, between the world of work and the world of dreams. The workshop is becoming a place of rest. The work is winding down. The transformations of the day are complete, and you are being invited, gently but insistently, to rest as well, to let go, to close your eyes, to allow yourself to drift into the warmth and the safety and the profound calm that has settled over this place like a blanket. By the time the sun has set completely, the candles hanging from the beams have cooled significantly. They are no longer warm to the touch. The wax has hardened fully. The layers have fused completely into a unified structure. The candles are ready for the next phase of their creation. The chandler begins the work of taking them down. He retrieves the first frame from the hooks on the ceiling beams, lowering it carefully, bringing it back down to the level of the workbenches. The candles are still hanging from the dowels, still perfectly aligned, still waiting. But now they must be finished. The candles that hang from the frame are not yet suitable for sale or use. Their bottoms are uneven, marked by the drips that have accumulated during the dipping process. The candle ends are irregular, slightly ragged, not smooth or flat. Before these candles can be used, before they can be burned, before they can perform their function of providing light, they must be trimmed and finished. The chandler approaches a marble slab. It is set into the workbench, a cool, smooth surface that has been carefully placed to be perfectly level. Next to the marble slab sits a small copper pot, and in that pot sits a long, thin knife. The knife is made of good steel, kept sharp, and it has been placed in the pot so that it remains warm but not hot. The warmth is important. A warm knife will cut through the cooled wax smoothly, will create a clean edge, will not shatter or break the candle material. He takes the first candle and examines the bottom. The accumulation of drips has created a rough, irregular shape where the candle ends. The base is not flat. The candle would not stand properly on a surface if placed with this bottom down. The wax must be trimmed away, must be removed, must be made clean and even. The chandler takes the warm knife from the pot. He places the bottom of the candle on the marble slab, and then, with a smooth, practiced motion, he draws the knife across the bottom surface. The wax, still slightly warm from the knife, cuts cleanly. The blade severs the irregular projections, removes the accumulated drips, creates an even surface. The trimmed wax shavings curl away from the blade, curling up like butter shaved from a cold stick, like the shavings that come from planing wood. The shavings are cream-colored, smooth on one side and slightly rough on the other. They fall onto the marble slab, creating a small pile of waste material that will be collected and remelted, returned to the vats to be used again. The first candle is trimmed. The bottom is now flat. The candle will stand properly. The candle is nearly finished. He sets the first candle aside and takes the second candle in hand. The same examination, the same placement on the marble slab, the same warm knife drawn across the bottom with a smooth, practiced motion. The same shavings curling away like butter, like wood shavings, like the slow accumulation of finished product. The work continues. Candle after candle, examined, trimmed, set aside. The bottom surfaces are made flat and even. The irregular drips are removed. The candles are transformed from the hanging finished product into the fully finished candle, ready for use, ready to burn, ready to provide light. The sound of the knife on the marble slab is gentle but distinct. A soft scraping sound, a whispering sound, the sound of final work, the sound of completion. And with each cut, with each removal of the accumulated wax, you see the candles becoming more perfect, more finished, more properly proportioned. The wax shavings accumulate in a small pile on the marble slab. They will be collected later and remelted, returned to the work cycle. But for now, they remain testament to the trimming work, evidence of the final finishing that transforms the dipped candle into the completed product. The candles stand in neat rows on the workbench. They have been trimmed, they have been finished, they are complete, they are ready. But they are not yet ready for sale or use. They must be bundled. They must be collected into groups, tied together with rough hemp string, organized into dozens. 12 candles per bundle, the traditional count, the standard way that candles have been bundled and sold for generations. The chandler gathers the first 12 candles. He holds them loosely in one hand, letting them rest against his palm, feeling their weight, understanding their substance. These are proper candles now. They are heavy enough to hold, solid enough to grip without fear of breaking. They are no longer fragile. They are ready for use. He retrieves a length of rough hemp string. The string is not fine or delicate. It is coarse, strong, designed to hold heavy loads. He winds this string around the middle of the bundle, around the thickest part of the candles, where they will not be damaged by the pressure of the string. He ties the string tightly, securing the bundle, holding the 12 candles together as one unit. As he completes the knot and pulls it tight, the candles are jostled slightly against each other. They make a soft sound, a gentle clack-clack as they bump together, as they contact each other. It is the sound of completion, the sound of finished product, the sound of 12 individual candles becoming one unified bundle. He sets this first dozen down and reaches for the next 12 candles. The same gathering, the same selection, the same careful placement, the same hemp string wound around the middle, tied tightly, secured. Clack, clack, the sound of the candles settling against each other as the string is tightened, the sound of bundling, the sound of organization, the sound of preparation for transport, for sale, for use. The bundling continues. 1 dozen after another, each bundle carefully created, each bundle secured with hemp string, each bundle making the same soft clack-clack sound as it is tied and completed. The bundles begin to accumulate on the workbench. Row after row of dozens, each bundle identical to the others, each bundle representing the work of hours, the accumulation of dozens of dips, the transformation of raw materials into finished product. And as you watch the bundling, as you hear the soft clack-clack of the candles settling against each other, you understand that you are witnessing the end of the work. The transformation is complete. The candles are finished. They are ready to leave the workshop, ready to be transported to the market, ready to be sold to the people of the medieval town. They are ready to provide light in the darkness, ready to burn in homes and churches and workshops, ready to allow the extension of human activity beyond the setting of the sun. The bundling is the final step of the production cycle. After this, the candles will leave the workshop. They will go out into the world. They will perform their function. They will provide light where there was darkness. They will allow work and prayer and comfort in the long nights of winter. They will allow mothers to watch over sick children. They will allow scholars to read and write after the sun has set. They will allow the world to extend beyond the hours of daylight, to reclaim the night, to create light where there is only darkness. But before the candles leave the workshop entirely, before they are taken away to be sold and used, there is one final step. One final act that proves the quality of the work, that demonstrates the success of the transformation, that shows that the candles will perform their essential function. The chandler takes a single candle from one of the bundles. He selects it carefully, choosing one that appears to be of the highest quality, one that shows no flaws or irregularities, one that is representative of the best work of the day. He holds this single candle up to the light, examining it from all angles, ensuring that it meets his standards. Satisfied, he carries this single candle to a small stand. The stand is made of wood, smooth and simple, and it has a small groove at the top designed to hold a candle firmly in place. He sets the candle into the groove, positioning it so that it stands straight and true, positioned so that the wick is vertical, positioned so that it is ready to be lit. He reaches for a flint and steel, the tools used to create spark and flame in the medieval world. He strikes them together, creating sparks that fall toward the wick. On the third strike, a spark catches the wick. There is a small hiss, the sound of the wick catching fire, the sound of the transformation beginning, and a tiny flame appears at the tip of the wick. The flame is small at first, wavering, uncertain. The wick is still burning off the accumulated material at its tip, is still establishing itself as a proper flame. But as you watch, the flame stabilizes. It becomes steady. It becomes a proper candle flame, bright and warm and golden, burning steadily in the still air of the workshop. And as the flame burns, something remarkable happens. The heat of the flame begins to melt the wax just below the flame. The wax, which was solid only moments before, becomes liquid. It forms a small pool around the base of the wick, a pool of liquid wax that glows in the light of the flame. The wick draws this liquid wax upward through capillary action, draws it up to the flame, where it vaporizes and burns, providing fuel for the flame to continue burning. The candle has become a machine for producing light. The materials that were transformed through hours of patient work are now performing their essential function. The candle is burning. The candle is providing light. And this light, this soft, golden, warm light, pushes back against the darkness that exists in the corners of the workshop. The light spreads outward from the single flame, illuminating the space around it, creating a zone of visibility where there was shadow. The light is not harsh. It is not bright in the way that sunlight is bright. It is soft, warm, gentle, welcoming. And as you watch this single candle burn, as you see the small pool of melted wax forming around the wick, as you observe the steady flame drawing the wax upward and burning it to produce light and heat, you understand the entire purpose of the work that you have witnessed. This is why the vats must be tended. This is why the wicks must be twisted carefully. This is why the dipping must be repeated so many times. This is why the raw materials must be processed and purified and combined. It is so that this light can be created. It is so that in the darkness of the medieval night, in the cold and black hours when the sun has abandoned the world, there can be light. There can be warmth. There can be the ability to work and pray and comfort and read and live beyond the limits imposed by the sun. This single candle, burning steadily in the workshop, represents the success of the entire process. It shows that the work has been done correctly, that the materials have been properly prepared, that the skill of the chandler has been applied successfully. This candle will burn for hours. It will provide light for hours. It will do the work that it was created to do. The candle burns steadily, and the chandler watches it for a moment, ensuring that it is burning properly, that there are no flaws, that the work is successful. Satisfied, he turns his attention to the vats. The day's work is done. The active production has ended. But the vats cannot simply be left unattended. The fires beneath them must be tended. The wax must be carefully prepared for tomorrow's work. The workshop must be secured and prepared for the night. The chandler approaches the first vat. He examines the fire beneath it, the gentle flames that have been maintaining the heat throughout the day. These flames are still burning, but the chandler does not want them to burn through the night. The wax does not need to remain fully liquid. The wax can cool. The cooling will happen slowly, gradually, allowing the material to remain workable, but allowing the heat to diminish. He gathers dry wood, ash or birch, the kinds that burn steadily and without much smoke, and he carefully arranges this wood to bank the fire. Banking a fire means arranging the fuel so that it will continue to burn slowly throughout the night, providing just enough heat to keep the wax warm and workable, but not so much heat that energy is being wasted, that fuel is being burned unnecessarily. The motion is practiced, economical, careful. He builds a bank of dry ash around the active fire, creating a structure that will burn slowly, creating a fire that will be sustained but reduced, a fire that will provide warmth but not intense heat. He does this for each of the vats. Each fire is banked. Each bank is carefully constructed. The flames reduce in intensity, settling into a slower, steadier burn. The heat in the workshop begins to diminish gradually. The intense warmth that characterized the hours of active production begins to ease slightly. And as the fires are banked, as the heat begins to reduce, the workshop itself seems to settle. The space becomes quieter. The dripping of wax that filled the air during the dipping cycle has ceased. The hiss and fizz of wicks contacting hot wax is gone. The sounds of work have been replaced by the sounds of fire, the gentle crackle and pop of burning wood, the sound of the banked fires maintaining themselves, maintaining the heat, maintaining the readiness for tomorrow's work. The chandler stands in the middle of the workshop, looking around him. The candles hang from the ceiling beams above, a silent forest of finished product, testament to the day's work. The bundles of dozens rest on the workbenches, ready to be transported and sold tomorrow. The vats glow with the gentle light of their banked fires, the wax inside them slowly beginning to cool, beginning to solidify, preparing itself for tomorrow's heating and dipping. The single test candle continues to burn, the small flame providing a soft, golden light that illuminates the center of the workshop. The light is warm and welcoming. The light is safe. The light is a promise that the work of the chandler has succeeded, that the ancient process has been performed correctly, that light can be created from raw materials through patience and skill and the understanding of the fundamental nature of wax and flame. The workshop is quiet, the workshop is warm, the workshop is safe. The intense activity of the day has ceased. The rhythm of the dipping has stopped. But the work continues, in a different form, in the slow cooling of the wax, in the settling of the finished product, in the preparation for tomorrow. The chandler sits on a bench, and for the first time since the dawn, he simply rests. He closes his eyes. He breathes in the honey-scented air. He allows his body to relax completely, his muscles to release their tension, his mind to quiet itself. And as the vats cool and the wax hardens for the night, the workshop stands silent, filled with enough light to guide the village through the darkness. The work is done, and you are safe. Sleep well.